Welcome to Gold Derby's group panel for TV costume designers. We want to welcome back Michael Ground for The Boys, Leslie Kavanagh for The Handmaid's Tale, Kirston Leigh Mann for Loot, Sarah Arthur for The Sandman, and Laura Montgomery for What We Do in the Shadows. So this question is for all of you, and Laura, I'll start with you. What would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions out there about what a costume designer does or does not do?
I think, what are the biggest misconceptions? Something that you'll often, I'm sure you guys have heard this when you are in a store, the person checking you out will say something like, "Oh my God, you shop for a living. It's so glamorous." Meanwhile, you have 20 bags, you've taken 3 trips to the car, you have 5 fittings to do when you get back to the office. I would say the misconceptions are that it's glamorous, that all you do is shop. And then I think the clothes are the thing that gets seen in the builds and the creativity. Those are the things that get seen. But then there's a large part of it that is actually like logistics, scheduling, money tracking, budgeting, and people management. You're creative head of department. So you could have, 20 to, more people working for you. So there is a lot of kind of people managing, and that's a component of it that doesn't really get talked about much or thought of when you think of a costume designer.
I agree. I couldn't have said it better. People think it's glamorous. People think that they want to do it. I have every friend calling me, my daughter wants to do it. And I say, give them to me for 1 week. And not many of them stick around after cleaning shoes or dyeing something or,
A lot harder than anyone ever thinks it is. The hours are incredibly long. And, today I've been stood in the middle of a field in the pouring rain, up to my knees in mud, terrible weather. It's not glamorous. Most of the on this particular job, it's not, definitely.
I would say that Laura said it the best. It's, I can't tell you the amount of times where on day 28 straight of 18-hour days, somebody's like, "Oh, your job's so much fun." And I'm like, I just want to fall over. I just want to fall over. I just want to fall over. But, and there's always that, you play dress up and you shop, and it's like, no, So that would be the biggest misconception and a lot of the time from friends and family too. And I'm like, oh, not exactly how it works. But I have, my brother is one of our costume assistants now, so he can go tell the truth to everybody.
I think it's about time as well as what it takes to make something. I think there's a lot of people that really do not understand. They're ask for something at 9:00 the night before it plays at 7 a.m. And they're just like, "Well, we can have that, right?" And you're like, no. Well, you find very creative ways of saying no. You never say no, really, but you're like, "Oh, well, we'll try our best," and just hope that the the little wardrobe wizards in the back room can make it, and it is the hours, like everyone said. It's just sort of that sort of concept of not understanding craftsmanship. I guess there's such an amazing talent of people here that do so many build shows, and so it happens to be a theme here that everyone could probably agree on, that the time and the turnaround for what it is to pump these costumes out. It's incredible that we even do it the way we do it.
Mm-hmm. Have any of you ever had a costume, either from this show or another project you've worked on, turned into a Halloween costume or a cosplay outfit at Comic-Con? And what was your reaction when you saw everyday people kind of wearing your work?
So I've had a lot of Jason Momoa costumes from my years with him, and it's always, to me, it's really endearing to see the really DIY at home versions of, because I think it's anybody that's taking the time to do that is, I find it really special. And there's people that reach out to me via social media, and they're like, where can I get that? And I'm like, that's a particular buffalo with the bleached blonde back, and that it's so there's been a lot of Jason cosplay over the years and a lot of Frontier cosplay, and then seeing some of the iconic moments from last season of The Boys. There's a lot of pink satin bathrobes around still on Halloween as Huey. There's I find it endearing in the most rudimentary way and in the most high-end way. I find it very sweet that people have taken time to recreate something and have fun with it.
Laura, what about you? I'm sure people have dressed up as your vampires.
Shadows is pretty big in the Halloween community and the Comic-Con world as well. There's a lot of Shadows cosplay. And it is really, it's the costumes, but then Harvey will bring in these really, people gift him a lot of things. So he'll have these little dolls that people make, these Guillermo dolls, and posters that they do. And I think it shows what kind of an audience the show reaches. It's very progressive. So there's a lot of gay and LGBT fans who love to cosplay as like Guillermo and Nandor. And then it's just really flattering that people are enjoying the costumes and really looking at the details, because they might reach out to me and ask me what the details are, but then I feel like they're also recognizing all of the hands that went into making these costumes, like the cutter who made the amazing patterns, my cutter last year, Carla Giardi, and then all of the sewers who worked on them, the milliner who makes the hats. I feel like everyone's work is being appreciated.
Mm. And Leslie, I know this is your first season on Handmaids, but you've seen people dressed up as Handmaids. It's just one of the most, iconic, especially for political, movements.
The Handmaid's costume, obviously, I take no credit for that. That is Anne Crabtree's work there, but it is pretty iconic, and it's still, emulated and copied all over. Sadly, there's a lot of, it's associated with a lot of the bad stuff that's happening right now. So there's that, but it has definitely been replicated many a time since season 1.
And so this will be a question for Kirston. Growing up, what were some of the iconic costumes on film or television that really caught your eye and made you kind of go, maybe this is something I want to do for a living?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm going to circle back to your old question, because thinking about just how I looked at things, like when for The Good Place with the Janet character, the first time I was on an airplane as a 5-year-old, I felt like stewardesses were angels, and just looking at their costumes is why I put Janet in that costume, because she's kind of an angel, but I made her into kind of a 1970s stewardess. And so I think it's never been outrageous costumes. It's been more about character. And I just like how people choose to represent themselves across the board. I could sit in any place in New York, and I just love the way people show themselves through their clothes. More than an outrageous costume. It's more character.
Mm-hmm.
Says me in a beige sweater.
And Sarah, what about you? Any iconic, costumes when you were growing up and that really caught your eye?
Yeah, I loved all the old films, or the Bette Davis, Rita Hayworth, or the I loved all the glamour in those old films as a young child. Every Christmas Eve we'd have these old films showing, and I think that was the start for me. I still do. I love glamorous shows. I seem to be getting more and more. I don't seem to have. I used to do a lot of current and contemporary projects, but I seem to be doing much more period, and that in itself is fun. The research that goes into it, but yeah, as a child, I loved all the the big dresses and My Fair Ladies, and that's what attracted me to costume.
And what about you, Leslie?
Oh gosh, my story is so not that interesting. I actually I know Mike and Laura, so they all know me because I worked my way up the ranks. I probably worked for them at some point, and I was a costume assistant. I had gone to theater school, and I sort of thought at one point I wanted to be on the other side of the camera, and then I just remember working on a play at theater school, and the school that I had gone to, if you were taking acting, you had to take a semester of stagecraft to understand what they do. And if you were in stagecraft, you had to take a semester of acting. So in my stagecraft semester, I was put in the costume department on this play. And my sister is a costume designer here in the city. And, you know, people know her, and she can do anything. And I couldn't even sew a button. I'm not even joking. Like when I learned how to sew a button out of this costume, I might as well have like just mounted Everest. Like I was just like, wow. Like, and I remember calling my sister from university and collective course, because I was a student. And luckily she accepted the call. And I was just like, all I could say is like, I just sewed a button. And she's just like, you know, and here's this woman that can do anything. She's like, but she was always so encouraging. And I just sort of worked my way up the ranks and sort of fell into it in some ways from, you know, making the progression from each position. And here I am.
For me, I grew up without television and, you know, went to the movies the odd time as a kid. But for me, it was the city, and it was street style, and it was character, and it was people, and it was, you know, it was. And there's still those iconic images I have of, you know, whatever neighborhood it was in Toronto at the time, of that person walking down the street on their way to the opera, or that person walking down the street to go work a corner, or, you know, all the older kind of, you know, cooler kids on their way, you know, on their way out to a club. And then my years as a young teenager, just living in the nightlife of the city, and, you know, and experiencing people and experiencing how people created their characters. And I think so much of that has influenced kind of the way I approach my work.
And Laura, how about you?
I think for me, and it still is a lot about world building, and I mean, yeah, playing make believe and creating worlds. How do these characters make a reality? And so there was I did a lot of pretend play as a kid. Anne of Green Gables, being Canadian, Anne of Green Gables, we had a set of like made for TV movies in the 80s that I was really, really into. So my younger sister had to spend a lot of time with me putting on like all of the skirts, and then different, you know, just trying to approximate what the like turn of the century shape would be, and then locking her in a downstairs powder room and dressing it up with Afghans and having our like tea parties, and just kind of trying to be transported and recreate a world that we were watching on TV.
Well, thank you, everyone. This has been I have learned so much about your profession that I didn't know before. And if there are any voters out there watching, the Costume Guild Designers Awards are coming up, and the Emmys are coming up. So please remember these great shows. Thank you.
Thank you.